I'm crossing the bridge, the summer is fading, the birds on the bay are bobbing around. I'm watching a gull come up with a starfish. He struggles a while, then gobbles it down.
Hello and welcome to East Coast DNA. Today's guest we have joining us from Prince Edward Island. So welcome, Shane Pendergast.
Thanks, Darcy.
So Shane, I am aware of you since I've been doing an East Coast podcast for a couple years now. I am curious, though, when I was diving into your new material, because that's why you're here today. I'm not really sure how long you've been around on the scene either. And much like a lot of us that are out there on the scene right now, I can't look at you and specifically say like, oh, he's this age, so he's probably, I can't, there's nowhere to guess. Mm-hmm. So it's either straight up research or get it from your mouth. So where did you start off as a musician? Like, is this like a thing that you started as a child or?
Yes, I was, my whole family's into music, and especially like PEI folk music. Part of my family's Acadian, and especially that side of the family, very involved in music, house parties. And my father actually has been doing music professionally for years, Cayleys and playing for visitors in the summertime. He's an accordion player, so he got me started pretty early on. I always grew up singing and got my start playing at Cayleys kind of as a summer job. And the songwriting came years later when maybe I was around 18, 19.
Okay. And so at that age, you would be, I mean, traditionally, would be completing high school, getting ready for a post-secondary education or going into the workforce. So did you have it in your mind back then that you were going to be a musician?
I always figured I'd have it to, it sounds weird to say, to fall back on as far as something I could do on the side. And I went to school in Toronto. After high school, I went to university in Toronto, and Toronto is not cheap, especially not now. And I wanted to make some extra money, so I thought, I kind of miss playing music. And I knew there was a lot of, I guess you'd call it expats, like East Coasters who live in Toronto now.
Sure.
And so I started doing music at various pubs in Toronto, and I'd focus really on East Coast folk music. Mm-hmm. And I sort of realized how much I love to perform, and especially when people would come out and say, oh man, you know what, it really brought me back home with those songs today, and got me really thinking more about the music and how unique it is to the cultural fabric on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of fell in love with it all over again. And after that, it kind of snowballed. And after COVID, I kind of have been doing it full time.
And now I'm curious, genre-wise,
Mm-hmm.
I did kind of have a question that you've already incidentally answered.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing folk music, which
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people on the East Coast that are currently doing it. And then we have for East Coast music, a lot of people that even have that term in their head. If they're not from here, they're thinking traditional, like fiddle, maybe some folk tunes. Mm-hmm. And with things like the ECMAs and all the different provincial music associations that are out there, I know that, and myself with a music forum where I'm promoting this type of stuff too, try to challenge the image a little bit to kind of allow for growth and diversity in our region. Like there's a lot of bands and the sounds here are a lot different. I focus a lot when I have indie alternative bands, usually go back a lot to references for like the 90s music scene in Halifax. But I mean, that's also a heyday for me in my musical journey and listening, that has a special place. So that's easy for me to go back to. But before we started recording, you had mentioned a previous episode I had with Irish descendants, Con O'Brien. And even just listening to your journey to this point, where you're talking about your younger years, I can see where it maybe wasn't by design, but you fell into kind of being a legacy act, which we don't have a ton of left in the East Coast. And that's something I always held dear to being a fan of East Coast music in general, is that there was a lot of legacy acts. And I think that goes back to things like Cape Breton fiddle music being what our region was known for. But it's interesting to see someone of your generation, and PEI is included in this whole East Coast scene. So I know that you have a wonderful music scene over there with lots of different genre groups that are out there. There's lots of scenes to get into. But I could see in your journey where you have the tradition baked into you as far as how you learnt music.
Yeah.
And it sounds like leaving the region and then seeing how that touched other people really just kind of reinstilled your passion for that. So is that something that throughout adulthood then you've been able to hold on to that? Like that, do you have a craving to get out there and try different things, or you've really found the sweet spot for what you like for a sound?
Wow, great question. Yeah, it's definitely like if you, let's say it's almost like living in a cave or something. If that's all you know, that is your universe. You don't see it as something special until you leave. So when I went away, I realized how important and how tied to my identity this music is. So I probably am forever going to be a folk musician, and especially come back to the East Coast for material for my music. I'm very happy to see all the other great genres that have popped up, and there's some guys here, the Absolute Losers. I think you might have talked to them. And again, they would be similar to you, fans of the 90s music scene.
Yes.
Indie. I don't know as much about that genre, but I think it's cool that they are sort of, paying homage to their roots with that genre as well. So I do think a lot about that here. There's some people who are more well known, like Lenny Gallant, the Irish Descendants,
Rollins Cross,
the
Rankin family.
Yeah,
Leahy. I worked record stores back then too, so I know both genres, and have an appreciation for sure for what we're known for here for the traditional stuff. So I find it it's inspirational to see somebody that sticks with it, because I do talk mostly to people that it's great, because it's also inspirational in its own way to see people that are challenging themselves all the time.
Sure.
But to focus on something, I find myself, I do a lot of different little things back here. So I don't feel like I'm an expert on any of these things. It's like a jack of all trades type thing. But that also leaves you a master of none. When you focus on something a little bit more, you become a little bit more of an expert in that area. So I do find it intriguing when we have people in our region that really stick to something, and you have stuck to a genre that you have a deep passion for. So you must find it fulfilling to get a full album out of your own material that you've written.
Yeah. And like even this record behind me is an old folk festival from PEI back in the late 70s, and my great grandma's singing on that. So it's like,
wow, yeah.
I'm proud of that heritage. And besides the big acts who've been successful, there's a lot of local people, just the amount of talent that's around, like there's this guy, his name's not Lenny Gallant, but Leon Gallant. And he and my dad played together for years. He had a couple of CDs out, but he never really toured that much, just played a lot on the island, but just a great songwriter and probably my biggest inspiration in music. he would have been buddies with Stompin' Tom Connors and stuff like that. But there's a great songwriting tradition too, and people like Al Tuck, on the East
Yes.
Coast. So I definitely focus on the songwriting part, and write what you know, they say. So
Yeah.
I seem to keep coming back to my just East Coast stories, and especially with this new record, which will be my fourth record. I am starting to take a step outside of the traditional sound.
Mm-hmm.
Still rooted in tradition, but sounding a little bit different for me, which was because I'm working with a whole different team this time, and
Okay.
they kind of challenged my sound. So it was really fun to do that, to do this project.
Yeah, you have kind of, and I know in one of the bios that I read too, I think one of the references for your sound was like Gordon Lightfoot.
Oh yeah.
I did in listening to the advance copy of your new album here. I almost got like a Traveling Wilburys vibe from one of the tracks there, which
Cool.
was kind of interesting. I did notice like you experiment a little bit with your tempo and some different instrumentation thrown in there. So
hmm
was there, and you said working with a different team. So with that, who are the players on that album with you?
So the producer and someone who was kind of just in the studio playing guitar and keyboard and filling in with whatever needed to be done was Logan Richard,
Okay.
who's kind of the opposite genre to me. We've been friends for years, but I guess we had sat down here at the house playing a few tunes, and I was showing him last year some of my new material that I was writing. And after we played with just two acoustics, I said, wow, like, I think this is like the core for my next album, like this sound. And he had some great ideas that I would never have thought about in the production
Mm-hmm.
aspect. The guys from the Absolute Losers, Sam and Josh Langell, are brothers. They played on the record. It's a small scene here, so people lend their skills to, different projects and cross genres all the time, which is kind of fun. And Aaron Como, who is a great engineer, but also a great piano player. He came out and played keys on the record, so nice team. And recorded just in Charlottetown with Adam Gallant, who's quite a busy man.
That's a amazing list of talent that you got back there. And I'm loving that. Not only are they some known names for your sake, but that I actually know quite a few of those people.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it would have been a fun time. Did you guys end up doing that? I've seen different musicians do things different ways. I know that there's more than one way to skin a cat, I guess.
hmm
So did you do that kind of piecemeal where like you had songs that you're working on and you had like a session like you did with Logan and then kind of took it away and refined it and then said like, hey, can you do this with me? Do that? Or did you have some retreat type styles where you were all together as a group?
Just in the recording process.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny because it's probably the longest I've ever spent in an actual recording time periods. Most of my other stuff, it was like get in, get out in 2 days, basically, which is a lot. Not much time for 12 songs.
Right.
But, this time, I'm a little bit older. The songs are a little bit more intricate. They're not kitchen party songs, which I think if you're going to record that kind of music, kitchen party style, you got to go in and hit it fast and hard and get it done. But this one, I wanted to take my time with it a little more. So we spent 5 days in the studio and it was actually really relaxed. We just have people drop in. Like one day we get there to record this song and I'm like, it'd be great to have a female harmony line on this. So Logan and we just called up our friend Amelia May, who
Okay.
was just living down the street, and she just walked over and sang a harmony on it, and it just sounded like magic. So it was fun to kind of capture some loose stuff, but the material obviously was quite rehearsed, at least between Logan and I.
Hmm. So did you find then that now I can kind of almost hear it in the like when you hear that full band live off the floor sound, like it sounds like a
Hmm.
live show, maybe a little cleaner. You can almost hear the collaboration in there with the new album. And I found when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, I would like to hear something like this with, and I kept wanting different people to be involved
Sure,
on the album
sure.
with you. As like, I'm like, I want
Hmm.
them to write another album, but I want these people on that one.
Yeah.
So it did kind of give that collaboration vibe, which even though the way I describe it sounds like I'm not hearing a live vibe, I do like those sounds for a studio album because when you do translate that to a live performance, it allows you to like pull from your friends that are in the area or happen to be at the show, or
Hmm.
maybe you're on the bill. You can have people come and go. So it gives a different variety to those songs that you've spent so much time crafting.
Yeah. And we kind of did it like we get the guitars and bass and vocals done live, and then you got that, and we
Hmm.
dug it, and then you could have fun with it and bring people in for,
Yeah.
let's try a piano on this, or so. Yeah, I would say there was mostly live, but yeah, a lot of that fun energy. Uh, like for example, and this was done live, but there's a song on there about playing cards,
Yes.
and I got my buddy Josh Langell was in on the drum kit, and he started playing this crazy shuffling beat that I was like, this is not how I heard it at all. But I just went with it. We did a take, and then I realized he was going for the sound of kind of playing cards and the rhythm of it and shuffling. And I was like, that's so cool that he just thought of that.
Yeah.
And so we kept that. And I like when people try something, out of the blue. Why not, right?
So do you have, like I said, so the album is Winter Grace.
Hmm.
It's out this Friday, which is January 17th.
Yes.
But following that, or coming into this weekend, for those that were fortunate enough to hear this early on, is there live performances tied with the release? Do you have a few of those coming up?
Yeah, on the release day on the 17th, I'm doing a full band type show at the Trailside Music Hall in town
Cool.
here on the island. And then I'm going to go following week to Halifax for a show at a place called Morley's, I guess, in Dartmouth.
Okay. Yeah.
And and then I'll be going to Ontario for about a week and a half, playing Toronto, Ottawa, one show over in Quebec, Chelsea, Quebec. So it's all on my website, but making the rounds to try to sell a few CDs or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Now, okay, that's going to be my next question
Yeah.
anyway. Do you have physical media or is it online release? That's
I have CDs
okay.
and I'd like to do vinyls, but maybe someday. It's not easy to transport and not cheap to make.
No, if somebody wanted to make money, that's a business for the East Coast. We need something that's central. Maybe, I mean, I'm Nova Scotian and you're from PEI, but I want to say New Brunswick makes more sense because it's right
Yeah.
there, like somewhere
Yeah.
right on along the borders.
Hmm.
That is a manufacturer of small run vinyl for independent artists because you would make a killing. There's so many people that would do it,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
it's it's expensive
Hmm.
and it's time consuming because you're not normally dealing with locals. You're dealing with people from away.
Sure. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
might finally raise the money to fund it and then have to wait a year for the print run to arrive at your
Yeah.
doorstep. So
Yeah. So I'm starting with just CDs, and I find I can still sell CDs, especially at folk festivals and stuff. People,
yeah,
whether or not they're ever going to listen to it, it's kind of like they like to support or get a memento, right, from the show, and so that'll be fun. But I love the live shows. I'll be just mostly playing solo in Ontario,
hmm.
but that'll be fun. It'll be fun as well.
So I'm curious too, and I do want to get a little back. into the album there too. But since we're
Hmm.
talking about live performances, and we did have a brief chat about this, East Coast DNA will be traveling to Prince Edward Island for a week in March for Music PEI's Music Week, which is very exciting. It's been on my bucket list actually,
Hmm.
so I'm happy to be part of it this year. So you have a nomination in there, and you have a performance that will be coming up that week as well. So when you perform as part of those festivities, and it's going to be featured heavily on East Coast DNA. So anyone that wants to know more about that, just subscribe now, and I'll bombard you all the month of February. But for you yourself, Shane, when you're performing in PEI, do you have more of a showcase style where you have some of those players available to you?
Yes, so for the music week, I think I'm gonna go for a trio thing with the
Okay.
Langell brothers, and that'll be at King's Playhouse, which is an awesome old venue, old theater in Georgetown, PEI, which is also just a great area, a lot of history up there, and so that'll be a lot of fun. Such a cool venue. There's a new artistic director who's been booking some great acts, like Daniel Lanois played there recently, and
Cool.
just like doing some different things there. So it's kind of cool to see. And but as far as a regular performing band for me, I don't really have one. It just depends on the show. I
Sure.
sometimes I'll play a lot of music with a fiddler. I still play with my family in the summer, and we do Kaylee's, so that's a whole different kind of a show, and it's nice to have the variety. But
Yeah.
I've definitely gotten more comfortable playing solo because when you tour, uh, yeah, it's just become part of the business now where it's not really
Yeah.
worth it to take a band for what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen it. There's well, anyone that's followed the show for the majority of the episodes will see the variety that I've had. But there's a
Hmm.
lot of people in your situation. There's a lot of front people out there that have bands that they're little families.
Hmm.
But you have bills to pay and a music passion in your heart, so you have the urge to get out there and play, and that's the way you pay your bills. You gotta get out there and do it.
Yeah, precisely. But the most important thing is going and playing live music at the end of the
Yeah.
day. You just got to find a way to get it done. Easier said than done.
And so, in that kind of thread, then of finding new audiences for you to perform to,
Hmm.
this new album sounds like an exciting release for you. It's like I mentioned the traditional stuff in there, and then how you had mentioned about like some of the variety that you did throw in there. It did have some ebbs and flows as far as like tempo and that type of thing. I'm curious. I don't have the track listing in front of me, but I am curious. Is there any tracks that really for you that you're eager for people to hear aside from your advanced single? Like as your lead single, I do have a question about that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there any specific tracks that maybe something sticks out that's a little different and you're curious how your fans come across or something that you
Yeah.
did that you want new people to hear?
There's sort of a strange song that will benefit from a live show performance because it it adds a little bit to have the preamble, the story behind the song, and it's a song called "The Cowboy Poet and the Saint." And I think I was driving up to Ontario for a run of shows last year, and I heard on the news that Shane McGowan of the Pogues had passed away, who was one of my favorite songwriters, great Irish singer, songwriter, kind of a crazy character. But and for whatever reason, I must have been bored on that drive up, but I started thinking about some people, some of my heroes, and some of the people that I've shared a first name with. So Shane McGowan of the Pogues came to mind, and then this character from a book that was called Shane, which I read when I was a
Hmm.
kid. It was like a cowboy book. So he was the cowboy, Shane McGowan was the poet, and then I was named for my uncle who only lived 9 days, and So I was kind of Shane number two, sort of. So if that other Shane who died as a baby is the saint. So I wrote this kind of strange song, and that's the story behind it anyway.
And now a lot of your songwriting does have, like, you're pulling from a lot of things that are happening around you like that, more so than they're not all breakup songs.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I was trying for the most part. I like to throw an album on if I'm gonna give it a good listen, like all the way through. I like to throw it on in the background first to kind of see
sure.
what jumps out at me before I give it a good second listen.
Hmm.
But one thing that jumped out for me lyrically, it's just an interesting reference, and I believe it is from the single that you have from the album. So
Okay.
you could go into it if you wish. But the last hurrah
Yeah.
was a line.
Yeah.
And by coincidence, and this isn't really related to most stuff for the podcast, but
Hmm.
I have family that vacations in Prince Edward Island
Yeah.
at the end of every summer, like Labor Day weekend.
Hmm.
And that's an ongoing joke within that group
Yeah.
is that if they eat anything bad that weekend, like, like a big ice cream or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
whatever, something greasy, they
Right.
say, oh, it's our last hurrah.
Their last hurrah.
But
Yeah.
they do it every year and they say it multiple times.
Wow.
So
That's
there's no real last hurrah, but
no.
that reference, I know it so well from my family using it in Prince Edward Island.
Mm.
And then here I'm
Oh wow.
listening to
Funny.
you pulling from references in Prince Edward Island. That term came out.
Mm.
So I did kind of find that interesting.
It's always a joy for the songwriter too when somebody has a whole gets a whole new meaning from it or
Yeah.
from a line or from something like, and it can really surprise you. Like there's songs that I put out, singles from this album that I put out in the fall that are kind of, even one of the more positive songs on the album is called Crossing the Bridge, and sort of a hopeful song, but someone had messaged me and said like I really needed this song this week. My relative passed away, and I kind of was listening to it, crossing the bridge. He's going into the afterlife, and I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
okay, that's not how I wrote it." But I'm really glad that it took on a new meaning.
That's amazing. So actually, we're probably getting low on our time for today too. So since we were talking about the new album and a
Mhm.
single from it, do you want to talk about that single and we'll play off with it?
Yeah, sure. There's a song called "Candle on the Sill" on the album, and sort of an old expression for back in the day, if let's say it was a bad storm going on or something, and sometimes people would leave a candle on the windowsill to say, hey, if you're traveling and you're in distress, you need a place to stay, this is a friendly place. So I was kind of using this candle on the sill as a metaphor. And like you said, it's the last hurrah line is kind of what starts out. And that was one of the last nights that I spent with my late grandmother. And we kind of had our last hurrah just telling them stories and going back on old memories that we had together, knowing that she was going to be passing away within a brief amount of time. So it's sort of a personal song for me.
Hmm. It sounds like for anyone that's going to give this album a good full listen, they might need a box of tissues near, depending on what's going on in their life at that point.
Maybe I should have tissues as merch or something.
Yeah, you should grab some stickers, throw them on some
Yeah.
boxes from the dollar store or something. You make a few bucks while you're out there.
Yeah.
It'd be a nice keepsake. So yeah, we'll play off here and Music Week, PEI, East Coast DNA will be there, and I'll be looking for you when I'm on site, Shane. So maybe we can catch up again, and you can give us a couple words about how the album's doing.
Well, appreciate you having me on, Darcy, and look forward to seeing you on the Gentle Island in a few
Great.
months.
Thanks again. And for anyone that wants to follow Shane, there should be links down below. And make sure to subscribe to East Coast DNA as well. We have a lot planned for 2025. So I'd hate to see that you miss out on something. I'm going to be there regardless. So See everyone around, and thank you very much.
It's the last hurrah, clinking glasses as the frozen feelings thaw. One more chance to look each other in the eye and say goodbye. Seems there's nothing else that we can do. You'll be setting sail with the grace to face the otherworldly gale. But for now we're reminiscing on the past. Went so fast, you held me, now I'm holding you. Even if there's little that I have to offer, even if you're sailing out of view, even if I know that you aren't coming back, I'll keep a candle on the sill for you. Never thought you'd go, for you always had an everlasting glow. And as you're pushing off, your parting words chime through. I love you, and I tell you that I feel the same. Even if there's little that I have to offer, even if you're sailing out of view, even if I know that you aren't coming back, I'll keep a candle on the sill for you. The journey's done, and I've made a blanket with the yarns you've spun. Now and then I hear your voice upon the wind, lilting in, giving little flickers to the flame. Even if there's little that I have to offer, even if you're sailing out of view, even if I know that you aren't coming back, I'll keep a candle on the sill for you. Keep a candle on the sill for you. I'll keep a candle on the sill for you.